Hey, before we start this week's episode, I had a couple more responses to the action and theme prompts that I do at the end of the episode. These are for Uphold and Discovery. There are two ideas that I'm going to pull from this that I think actually kind of work pretty well together. The first one comes from a Tom W. Russell, which is I see an item of great significance, the discovery of which upholds or confirms some controversial view of history or theology. Something like a journal that confirms who killed a leader in the past, or that confirms the origin of the Iron Monuments. Which, I love that plenty on its own, but especially when we combine that with another one that came from FNamey66. Apologies for the potentially completely wrong pronunciation, but they write, I interpret that it's a book that was meant to be destroyed ages ago, but somehow wasn't. That could be because the person meant to destroy it secretly didn't. Magic preserved it, or it was destroyed, but someone memorized it verbatim and recreated it in secret. And I personally really love the last one of those. The idea that, like, if we're now combining these two ideas together, that there is this controversial forbidden knowledge book that was there a long time ago, like hundreds of years ago, and it was destroyed, but then the knowledge of it was passed down from generation to generation through having been memorized and done through the oral tradition. It gets slowly perverted along the way. It's not quite the way it was before, and then eventually someday somebody codifies it one more time into an actual tome once again, fully writes it down to preserve it in its new form in this new ideology that's perhaps even more controversial than before. And now that it's written in a tome, perhaps it can be reprinted and spread around, and maybe this ideology that's been long in the fringes is going to make a comeback. I love all of this, the way it kind of works together, and this is what I love about these action, theme, and descriptor and focus prompts, sourcing from different people, like the different ideas that come together. It's super cool how these can inspire such different things. So thank you for your submissions, and I hope to hear some more. And of course, if you want to participate in these kinds of action and theme, like submitting your own ideas, be sure to listen through at the end of the episode. During the outro, I will give you a new action and theme for this episode, so stay tuned. For now, speaking of action and theme, I want you to listen to the theme music. Enjoy.
Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
Last episode of the show, let's face it, it got a little bit dark. Emile started off trapped underneath some rubble with an enemy who'd been trying to kill him basically the entire time they've known him, Sage, the presumed leader of the people of Concord, and his kind of buddy that he re-encountered when thrown in prison around here, Shark. Shark was in a bad way, mortally injured. Emile spent a good portion of that episode working on trying to somehow save his life, despite having an amputated leg. He was not successful. There was a lot of tension in the air. Sage and Emile weren't talking to each other and were just waiting to be rescued for over a week. Eventually, Emile just gave up hope and held a rock over Sage's head while he was sleeping and just dropped it with the intent to kill him. He's at the very least incapacitated. It was a really dark time, but Emile was eventually able to cobble together a device to melt his way out of the rock. And with that kind of tone in mind, I do want to take a moment to reflect on when this podcast started. I mentioned how the desired kind of aesthetic of it all and tone was, I wanted this to remind me of a prog rock cover. And while I don't take back any of what happened last time, we're not going to retcon any of it. I did reflect and determine that that is getting a little bit more grim than I really want this to be throughout. I even mentioned in that first episode that this was not going to be too gritty and grim of a podcast, and I feel like I've really gone up against the line on that. Everything made sense for the situation, but I want to actively, as we move forward on this and Emile tries to escape this place and see through his plan to get on a ship to get out of here, that we maybe lighten the tone back up a little bit more and get a little bit more jocular and fun with it again. I don't know if that'll immediately be the case, but we're going to angle for that and try and pull out of this kind of like grimy brown filter that we've put on everything. So with that in mind, where we left off, Emile had cobbled together a plan that the Reacher that was crashed might still have a supply of fuel that could be scavenged and put into the heretofore unnamed ship that had the AI tetrahedron in it. It was the ship that Concord was planning on poaching for a power supply. Emile was able to determine that it is theoretically flyable but low on fuel. However, to get to the Reacher to even get the fuel is going to be quite the journey. And Emile also looked into some of the damaged skiffs from the explosion that were still here in the hangar, and he found one that, while fixable, like it could be made flyable again, which would help him close that distance without doing just an utter trek. The tools that he would need to do such a job are nothing he has handily available. It would definitely involve having to sneak back into the rest of the base, into the heart of it, to find the tools necessary to be able to patch up what he's got. Finding the things that they took from him would be a good first start, but even that might not be fully enough. But, while he's sneaking in, that would probably be what he would go to do. So Emile determined that it was time to sneak back in. It's been most of a week. He's hungry. He's exhausted. He's pretty much out of spirits entirely. And let's start this off by treating this like one more site to be exploring. This is all part of our vow about not dying on Cinder. But specifically, we're going to make a progress track. This progress track is going to represent Emile's journey to the area where he saw when they were about to be heading out of here. All the people that were on their way to the ship were gathering their gear from a location. Emile knows a kind of like ready room area that has lots of just tools for doing engineering work, mechanical work, stuff he could use to fix up a big vehicle like this. He knows a room where they keep all of that because he was along with them while they were gearing up before they all headed out together. Emile's got to make his way back to there. And I honestly don't want this to be like a full session thing. I'm just going to set this as a dangerous one. It's definitely dangerous in the sense that like anybody who finds him there is going to be really on edge and not so happy with Emile as a person. Everybody in this base is convinced that Emile set off that explosion on purpose. So if they see him, it's going to get violent very quickly. So that's what keeps it dangerous, but I don't think he has to go that far for it. And so that's why it's not any higher than that. So I'll just call this Journey to the Ready Room. That'll just be, I'm sure that's not what they call it, but it'll be our stand-in for that idea. Unlike so many things we've done recently, I'm not going to have a clock on this. He can really take as long as he wants. And he is going to be doing this so cautiously. Unfortunately, he's going to have to rely a lot on his shadow throughout this because as he's undertaking this expedition, it's going to be all about keeping under the radar. Like, the most important thing about this is that nobody spots him, and that is very much a shadow thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything we can do to give him an advantage on this. I've got some decent momentum, but I'd still love to get a +1 or some kind of preparation. And I think because he's in an empty room right now, Emile can take the opportunity to try and find a way to, like, jack into their computer system so that he can hopefully kill the lights everywhere, as that would definitely help him sneak around. So before I fully undertake the expedition, Emile is going to try and do that. So he's going to first try and secure an advantage. He's going to secure an advantage with wits, because he's been in this room enough time to be able to see. He's always looking out for any kind of tech stuff around. He knows where there are panels on the walls and stuff to be able to find. Now, there's still so much of the billowing, blowing, just dust and ash going through the room. It's an awful time in here and very hard to see, as it's just filled the room with, it's like the red light that we've previously seen in the hangar is like glinting off of it. It's like glittery and really hard to see through, and he does not have the benefit of his AR computer. This is all going to have to be something he does just manually on his own, because nothing's going to help him find it, nothing's going to otherwise help him break into the system. But let's do that wits roll to see how well he just is able to crack this system with like whatever keyboard is there and just enough to shut off the lights everywhere and lock it out. So let's secure an advantage. This is something that my tech asset will definitely help with. I am somewhere between configuring and disrupting an electronic system, so we're going to get to add a +1 on this. Starting off with a nice strong hit, so I get to take +2 momentum, which caps me out at 10. We cannot get that any better. And I get to add +1 to my next move, so Emile is indeed able to shut off the lights and get them locked out at least for a time. Not only is this going to help conceal his actual progress in there, but presumably the people inside are going to be scrambling to try and undo this work. More of their attention will be on that than they're looking around for him. So he might draw attention away from directly where he's going, because the gear up room that we're looking for is not the room that we've previously seen in vignettes that has people like huddled around the systems and everything. I think in addition to this, Emile has... No, I was going to say in addition to this, Emile had shut off the security systems, but I think that would be if we had a match. All he's done is turn off the lights, so it's going to be hard to even detect him on the security systems. But he's only got so much time. Not in the sense that I'm going to make a clock for it, but just eventually if we have problems, that might represent that they got the lights back on. So the red light of the room shuts down and we're in complete darkness. And now Emile can't see all that well either. And again, he does not have his AR display, so he's feeling around on walls and stuff. It's pretty tricky going. He's going slowly and making sure to not get lost. He remembers the route, but it's tricky. He really can't see very well. I don't think there's even if there is any sense of emergency lighting in here, Emile shut it off. It is just pitch black as best as possible, where we just hear the breeze of ash blowing around and hitting against like metal walls. There's just kind of like the sound of like sand hitting against a like aluminum plating, and otherwise quiet. And let's begin our expedition. Shadow with a +1 and a full 10 momentum. Right, I have a weak hit. On a weak hit, you reach a waypoint, but this progress costs you. Envision the location and mark progress per the rank of the expedition, but choose one. Suffer costs en route. Make a suffer move -2 or 2 suffer moves -1. Or face a peril at the waypoint, envision what you encounter. And partly in the name of trying to keep this kind of quick and not having the whole session be about the journey, I'm going to go with the simple option here, and that's that the route that Emile needs to take, there's a moment where he starts hearing the clamoring up ahead of people trying to deal with the power problem, and they're moving about, and there's a conversation in the hallway there where he needs to go, and Emile can't see the people. He can just... Oh, you know what? He probably hears them because they can't use sign language to each other when they can't see each other. No, the way that'll work is Emile hears footsteps up ahead, and then he sees in the distance flashlights moving around. And they're not flashlights to search for a person, because they're not looking for a person. They're actually flashlights that are shining on each other and each other's hands, because they need to be able to still silently communicate, so they need to be able to see the sign language, which they otherwise couldn't. So Emile doesn't know what they're saying because they're still signing in the distance, but there's people up ahead, and Emile has to wait for a long period of time, just holding his breath and hoping they don't continue coming this way as they talk about something. And it costs him momentum as he's just waiting for too long of a period for them to pass. And eventually they do. So let's find out what this waypoint is exactly. We are going to determine a kind of location that we're in, because we're going to treat this like a derelict. This is a settlement. So in rolling the settlement derelict zones, I got operations. And in operations, this type of area is a lounge. that does have emergency lighting, apparently. Okay, so maybe that's what it was. They didn't have flashlights. They were standing in the area with emergency lighting. Some part that just wasn't part of the computer system. There are some areas that are just not computerized, but indeed like emergency lighting that'll just happen naturally. And so it was a pair of Concordians that were standing in that emergency lighting so that they could sign to each other about what they're supposed to be doing, what they're supposed to be looking for. But Emile has no idea what they're talking about. And it takes a little while for them to part, but eventually they do and head back into the shadows. And in fact, I think they even walk past, like, pretty close past Emile, who is just completely in the shadows, and they don't see him. But it's a tense moment. Emile is going to take the opportunity. Let's see, what else might be in this room? It's a lounge, so Emile is damn hungry. He hasn't eaten in a week and change, so maybe they've got some just, if it's a lounge, they might have some snacks and spare, like just some food put away here. I don't think Emile can turn it down. Who knows when he's going to get even if he steals this ship, he doesn't know if there's any food on it. He needs to take this opportunity. So I think Emile is going to functionally explore this waypoint in order to try and find some food in here. So this is going to be a wits roll. Actually, here's how I'm going to do it. Rather than do it as explore a waypoint, very specifically, he is just being a scavenger right now, trying to resupply, and in this case, resupply his food specifically. So I'm just going to indeed make the resupply move, which my scavenger asset is specifically helpful with that. When I resupply by scavenging a wreck, ruin, or abandoned site, which this is, I add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. Let's make that move. This is specifically scavenging or crafting, which is a wits roll, so I'm well set up for this. I have my +1 from scavenger. This is like what I'm here to do. Very much a strong hit. So I get my +1 momentum from just scavenger. From the move, the strong hit allows me to, if I were unprepared, I could clear the impact, but I'm not unprepared. So I can either take +2 supply, which would set my supply to 3, or if I'm in need of a specific item or resource that can reasonably be obtained, I require it and take +1 momentum. I think since this is indeed specifically about food and not just supplies in general, I'm going to specifically go for I take 1 more momentum, and now he has food and he'll be able to eat it when he has a better opportunity. I'm sure he munches, like shoves at least a little bit of it in his face right away, just some food and water, but does get some to save for later, is able to find like just something of a pack to put it in that he'll then also be able to put in like some of the equipment he needs. And then let's see, is there anything else that what else might they have in a lounge area? Probably not too much that's that helpful. Maybe some first aid supplies or something if I'm thinking of, and he is pretty hurt. But if I'm thinking of like a business, which this isn't, it's a settlement, but a lounge area might just have like first aid or something like that. This is going to be the last thing that I try and just scavenge from this location, because I think it's not reasonable to expect it has a lot in here, but this is one other thing that it might have. We're going to do one more resupply move. Scavenger asset still helps it in the same way. Let's see. Another strong hit. So just like before, I have those same 2 options. I can't make my momentum any higher. I think this is just going to indeed be about like, it's not a specific like medical supply or anything like that. I'm going to go with the first option this time, which is just I'll raise my supply by 2 as I just kind of get general purpose, just things that I would need in the name of like medical supplies here that I might be able to use to treat my wounds a little bit later. And then Emile recognizes like this area has light. He's in danger. There are cameras and stuff. It would be too problematic to stay any longer. So Emile is going to move on and make another exploration move. This time he's just going to have to rely on his shadow alone. Thankfully he does get another weak hit, which same thing as before, where we're going to reach another waypoint. However, the progress does cost us. And to mix things up, I don't want it to just be he loses momentum again. We're not going to do the dance of I put my momentum at max and then I lose a little bit and then I keep going up and down. That's just a boring story. So this time, let's face a peril at the waypoint. Let's envision what we encounter. First off, let's find out what kind of room this is. We're in living quarters, which makes sense. We're getting closer to like where everybody sleeps and then keeps their gear to be able to. I imagine like first thing in the day, they're ready at any moment. They keep their stuff near where they sleep. So the specific living area we're in is mess hall or dining. Okay, and I want to know what kind of peril we can get in there. Lured into danger by signs of life. All right. I think the specific signs of life that... Let's imagine a little bit more about what that is. I feel like... What would they eat around here that could be sustainable? They brought things with them. But what are they consistently eating in this place? Is it food that's being replicated? Do they have a way to grow it somehow? What are they doing? I'm going to roll some action and some descriptor and focus here to inspire this a little bit, because I want it to be a little bit weird. Corrupted reality. Now, that is definitely weird. So... I think what happens here, and why it's also a peril, Emile is still very hungry. And he's lured in by, like, this, like, buffet area almost. It's not literally a buffet line like you would imagine in a restaurant, but, like, this whole countertop area towards the end of the room. You know, we've got kind of a big open space with lots of dining room. It's empty right now. And he was otherwise feeling his way through along the tables, but there's a glow from along the wall. A little bit of emanation from some of the food that's on the end, where it's just like this long countertop with all kinds of food. And by at first appearance, it's just like regular food like you would get anywhere. It's good, just human food, the way you would expect anywhere else. And it lures him in almost like a mirage. But as he gets closer, it starts like flickering a little bit and distorting, and it becomes clear this is being generated through like it's this long. The countertop underneath it isn't just a surface; it's a housing for like you can hear the mechanical humming of it all as it is working with some kind of strange material inside. These like we can't see them, but for the purpose of just what is true about this. There's like these light cubes inside that are like black and purple and undulating that are just using a property of just like unreality to change the fact that there isn't food into the fact that there is food. So it's just making impossible things true. And that sounds like an amazing thing to be able to harvest. I don't think Emile completely understands that that's all of what it is yet. I think it takes until he goes over there and he grabs, it's just like a regular old apple, and he holds it in his hand, and he's about to eat it when it just like, it has a little bit of those like glitchy corruption effects for just a moment, and it happens while he's touching it. And I think the reason why it's being glitchy is because when Emile shut off the lights, he shut off like a little bit of some auxiliary systems as well, because he couldn't be that particular with what he was doing, not with the materials he had on hand. And so some of these systems that are like keeping this thing from going berserk are offline. There are checks and balances on the unreality that aren't currently functioning, and so it's starting to kind of broaden beyond that. And it flickers a little bit in his hand, and like his hand itself a little bit distorts. And that is going to be it's going to attack his health, because it corrupts the very making of his body itself. And let us suffer. I think that's a pretty major thing, it attacking just the very form of his being. I'm going to make this a health -2. He only has 1 health at the moment, so that's -1 health, and then -1 momentum, because that was it. There's a bit of overflow. Because it's serious harm, and he risks crying out. He has to like immediately, he bites down on his other arm in order to keep himself from screaming out, because it's horrible pain as it happens. So my health is 0, which means I have to roll health or iron against it. Iron is slightly higher. So let's roll that. I don't have any adds on this, but I have high momentum. Ooh, nice. Actually got a strong hit anyway. So I can either shake it off, I'm not wounded, so I could take 1 health back, or embrace the pain and take 1 momentum. No, it's definitely about shaking it off. No, he's not embracing the pain. He drops the apple and like is biting on his arm to keep himself from screaming. It's in fact kind of just does, but it's a muffled screaming for a bit. But the plus side of it is he recognizes there's something weird about this. And I think he's too curious of a person to let it just be here. He knows anything that could do that to him has great potential. And so he gets down on his knees and starts investigating the housing of all of this to find out, like, what is the source of all of this, and can he potentially find a way to harness and control and keep some of it with him without it harming him. He's not going to immediately grab it until he has a chance to analyze it. But let's gather information. We are analyzing evidence, we're researching, we are trying to find out what is this thing's deal and could we possibly harness any of it. I don't think anything that I've got is going to be specifically helping me with this. Or actually, yeah, this first roll is going to actually get the benefit of his scavenger asset, because what I'm going to do is he's taking pieces of it that are not like the glowing core, but like looking at little pieces and finding out, like, reverse engineering them, figuring out how does this have to work when it's fully on, how would it keep it contained, what are the dangers with this and all of that. So I'm going to gather information and get my scavengers +1 on it because it helps with this as well. Okay, it's a weak hit and one I can't improve with momentum. So the information provides new insight but also complicates my quest. Envision what you discover, then take +1 momentum. So I once again set my momentum all the way at 10, and then I think what I discover is that, yeah, I know how he knows how it works. He indeed finds these like weird purple cubes in there that span the entirety. There's plenty of them. He determines that he could indeed probably get it, like, it's over-engineered in the sense that, like, he could take one and it would all still function. They wouldn't necessarily even know that it's missing. But what's complicated is he does not yet have any ability to keep it contained. He would have to put something together on the fly, which is what we're going to do next. He's going to try and secure an advantage by cobbling together an ad hoc tool, device, or weapon. In this case, he's cobbling together through the parts here an ad hoc way to keep this contained. Some way to be able to take it with him without hurting himself. So once again, let's secure an advantage with our wits. This is just a session where I get to completely lean into, like, this is the situation that Emile is built for. I know it feels like I'm getting to kind of cheese it a little bit by adding my +1s to everything, but, like, this is what Emile does. He functions best when he has time to be able to actually make use of the environment, scavenge things, put it all together, when he's not under, like, the same kind of pressure. There's just always the chance that he's going to get picked up on the cams, so eventually they're going to get these lights on. Easy strong hit. All the dice were working together on that. And so what that means is I do indeed get to make this ad hoc just kind of... It's like this sphere. He finds the pieces that are supposed to be powered, and it's enough of a, like... they're just thick enough that if he fully encapsulates one of them and, like, really layers them together, it's just a ball to kind of be able to keep the unreality from leaking outwards. It's just this orb that clamps down around it. What makes it a full-on device, though, and where I would get to add a +1 when I make a move aided by this item, is that I think he adds a focusing lens to it. And so now what he has on his person is he has this orb with a focusing lens. It almost looks kind of like a Pokeball, where there's just like this circular window on the front that he can click a button on it, and it opens up the shutter just enough to basically fire out a beam of unreality, which could be used as a weapon, maybe, but it's more meant to be able to chaotically change the nature of something in front of him in an aimed kind of way. And while he has no idea what will happen if he does it, he'd have that ability. So, yeah, we're going to call this the Chaos Orb and carry that on our person. I think he's going to keep that at the ready rather than in a pack, just like in his hand at any given moment, so that if need be, he can indeed just use it without having to find it first. So that's really cool, and that's got me all kinds of excited. Let's find our next spot. With a undertaken expedition, once again with our shadow. Okay. This one is a full-on miss, but because I have such full momentum, I could take this opportunity to indeed burn it all and turn this into a strong hit, which, in the name of expediency, I think is what I'm going to do. We can build this momentum back up. Let's do that. Momentum burned, we're reset back to +2. I reach a waypoint, I envision location and mark progress. So now we're at 6 boxes out of 10, getting to the point where it's starting to be reasonable to maybe end it and just hope for the best. But no real reason to, other than the fact that I no longer have momentum to lean back on if my shadow doesn't work. And yeah, this may start getting a lot worse. So what is this location that we're in now? Production area. And I rolled an airlock or staging area, which is it's definitely not an airlock. We're not in an area that needs to be. I suppose it could also be an alternate exit outside. Yeah, let's do that. It is both an airlock and a staging area. This is one more exit to the outside. It's completely in the wrong direction from where the skiffs are and everything, but it is also a staging area that may well have the equipment necessary to be able to gear up. However, a lot of it was taken by people that got blown up in an explosion, so we're going to have to find the right stuff. It is, to paint a picture of this room, I see it as it's like an archway. The whole thing kind of looks like a tunnel. Like if you were to extrude a cathedral door shape just into a long tunnel, it ends in like a big metal door, not like the full-on hangar, but a full airlock that goes into, actually, I don't think we even know if it goes outside or just into some other sealed off area. We don't know what's behind it, but there's a big pressurized door that seals it off completely, and all along the walls as we go on there are just it's like little, they're not full-on lockers, but just like hooks. And it's almost like being in a changing room for if you were an NBA player or something, where they're like little cubbies where, a space you can sit on while you put your boots on, and racks to hang your the outdoor clothing from, and little foot lockers in places where you might keep things like the tools that you would need for the job. And Emile is going to start just going through all the foot lockers to find, I need tools. This is what we're going for. Now this is the ready room, and I suppose the journey was to the ready room. What I more meant by it, and probably should have rephrased it, was to the ready room and escaping, the full journey of in and out without getting found. So if we were to end the progress track here, that would be Emile going through the airlock, which I might actually do. Otherwise, it'll be him turning around and going back the way he came. So let's once again have Emile basically scavenging. He's resupplying with not, his original gear, which isn't in this room, but enough of the same kind of stuff to be able to allow him to work on machines, get, the wrenches and whatever more sci-fi version of your sonic spanner or whatever. The stuff what's necessary to turn and cut and all that good crap. So let's resupply. We get to do it with wits, and we get to have our +1. Strong hit, which allows me to indeed take my +2 supply, putting me all the way up at 5. So at this point, what this represents is indeed, he's got all the various arbitrary stuff that he would need to do the job now. He has not escaped, but he's got tools. He can solve that problem if he is able to get back to the skiff that needs repairs, which he hasn't done yet. So the big question is, do I trust myself with no raised momentum and with spirit all the way down at 0? Emile is not exactly the picture of confidence right now. Is he going to just go out this airlock to wherever it may lead, or try and make his way back and do the best that he can? I think, considering the state of everything, Emile thinks it is a more safe bet to go out the airlock, hope that it goes outside, and just travel around the outside where they won't be before they get the lights back on, because he can't imagine it'll take that much longer. So let's make that move. We're going to make a progress roll against 6 progress as Emile opens up this door and just goes to the other side for whatever that means. And this will dictate what that means. Okay, come on. I've got a 6. Okay, a weak hit. 4 and a 10. So 4 and a 10 on finish an expedition means... Or well, weak hit on finish an expedition means I reach my destination, which in this case is getting outside. But this will indeed lead outside. I complete my survey. And I'll get to mark my reward, which is 2 more ticks on the discoveries track. However, I face an unforeseen complication at the end of my expedition. Mark the legacy reward 1 rank lower and envision what I encounter. Okay, so I actually only mark 1 tick on this legacy track, which, damn, it's a shame too, because 2 ticks would have meant that I filled in a box and got experience. 1 tick does not. Let's see what the complication, though. I got this image in my mind right away that I kind of really like, even though it's being really mean to Emile. I feel like there have been some storms recently that, like, initially this airlock opened up to kind of like a big dune of sand, but some wind has blown a lot of it away, and he steps out not being able to see very well. And there's no ground beneath him, and immediately just, like, plummets down. Now, it's not a huge drop, and it is a drop into sand, but I think he falls into this sand pit that's, like, it's kind of like it's like a sinkhole. It's hard for him to kind of... He's stuck in it, and the sand is trying to kind of come down and bury him as he's doing it. He's just in this big bowl of very, very loose, the like ash that's been blowing around this whole time. And the more he tries to struggle to get out of it, the more it's just coming down around him. We're going to face danger against that in order to just escape this whole situation. The glimmering black ash is coming down, threatening to bury him. The more he struggles, the worse it gets. And Emile decides this is the moment to, for the first time, use the Chaos Orb to change what is this around him. Can he change it into some more stable substance by, like, maybe he's able to exert his will, maybe not. Maybe anything would be better than this, but he knows he's going to drown if he stays under here. His rebreather is not going to work if it's completely just covered up by sandy ash. It can't breathe through that. So this is a face danger with, let's call this... I'm not going to give myself the full benefit of this being wits just because I'm using a device. I will get the +1 I have from using my device, but I think it's still going to be about strength, endurance, or like it's still getting out of this pit that's bringing him down. It's either iron or edge, and I need to figure out which one makes more sense. Certainly brute force struggling in a quicksand equivalent tends to be bad, so it probably is more about mobility and like staying the right kind of calm and like getting flat and getting out without making it worse. So I'm going to be nice to myself and call it edge with the +1 of it's partly positioning the body and it's partly firing the beam to make something that is more stable in front of him to be able to grab onto. And, you know, not getting in the way of the chaos beam. So let's do that. Face danger with edge and a +1. Oh, that's bad. Not only is it a full-on miss, but I did roll a 1 on the action die, which means it's permanently broken, lost, or depleted. And importantly, the device was the containment device, not the Chaos Orb. So I think what happens is Emile has too much confidence. We need to pay the price, obviously. Emile has too much confidence in the focusing lens of it. And it works at first, but very quickly, unfortunately, the like beam of chaos changes the lens itself, and like it's nothing too big or grand of a change, but its structure is weakened enough as it like flickers through reality that it cracks and breaks and then just shatters out of the way. And now it's not focused at all, and it is wide spilling through this whole area and cracks open the kind of Pokeball Chaos Orb. It is spilling widely out, including in Emile's direction. So it's I fail or a momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events. I want to go with the momentary success, where he at first does indeed manage to turn... I'm going to roll on an oracle to figure out, like, what does he turn some of this ash into that initially makes it seem like he'll be okay. I'm doing this as descriptor and focus. Active and time. I think what happens is the beam hits some of this ash, and it's like eons pass, not eons, but like millennia pass, and this ash is just slowly petrifying right in front of him, because it's as if just time is just going all kinds of forward on him, and it it hardens some of it into enough of a surface for him to climb on top of because it's petrifying. And he's on his way out, he's getting his footing, and that's when, like, as his torso is like halfway out, that's when the lens itself breaks, it spills out openly, it hits Emile, and we gotta go with an RPG classic here. We gotta artificially age Emile. If we're making just like a millennium go by for this for the ash in front of him, I'm not going to be that mean and say that he's aged 1,000 years, because this isn't enough to just kill him right here. Maybe it's because he's not being as directly hit by it. But time has got to advance for Emile, and we're going to ask some oracles about how aged is Emile. So in my imagination, Emile starts off pretty young. Like, we're talking about a guy, scrappy, young, beginning of his career, like mid-20s or something. Enough to have gotten a little bit of experience and gotten a little bit arrogant about it. Mid-20s guy as we start. Let's ask the oracle about how many years he advances. No matter what, it's not going to be enough to just kill him outright. So he's not going to age like 100 years. But he could be an old man by the end of this. Let's see. Ask the oracle. We're going to do it my classic way, where as we go more and more time, it's going to get less and less likely, but it is almost certain that he is aged at least 5 years. So the question, has Emile aged 5 years or more? No, actually, I rolled a 100. Lucky Emile. He does not age even 5 years. It's just like, it's probably not even enough to be all that noticeable, because indeed, he's a young man. A couple of years, you're not going to make not a big difference between like a 25-year-old and a 27-year-old. But, he's got, just a little bit more of that, one more hair is gray, a little bit more of like the wrinkles around his eyes get a little bit more pronounced, ever so slightly. It's subtle. It would take probably like a sophisticated artificial intelligence to be able to determine the difference as opposed to a human eye. I don't think even the most scrutinizing a person could be able to tell. But he does age, and that's definitely also going to... We got to make a health roll against him again, where just aging that quickly is bad for the body. So we're going to hit him with another 2 health hit, which once again needs to... Because he only has 1 health, that overflows into his momentum, which is now at +1. We're required to try and endure that harm with a strong hit, thankfully. So it's the same as before. I will absolutely take the +1 health back to not be at 0. Much as I want to embrace the pain and take +1 momentum. Now, he still needs to get out of this pit. I think he has got like a little bit of a thing to stand on now. Like we suffered the harm. It hurt really badly. And the cube is, of course, still, like, it's spilling out everywhere. It's not contained anymore, and it's up to Emile now. I think the best thing that he can do is to try and just bury it in sand. Like, try and manipulate some of the spilling sand in such a way that it just covers up all of it, hopefully with enough thickness to prevent it from spilling out for a little while and maybe just seal itself in. Which is a damn shame, because I want that damn reality cube, or that chaos orb. We're going to have to make another one at some point. We know where it can be found. So Emile is going to secure an advantage here, and it's with edge. I think this is an agility thing, again, where he's trying to like touch some of the ash in such a way to manipulate where it's spilling down while he stands on this kind of harder surface, this more petrified solid bottom that he's on, which is just kind of like a narrow ledge. I imagine it about the width of like a balance beam, so he's got to be careful to like not fall off. He didn't get a lot, but he can bend down and reach to some of the other ash to try and get it to spill down without touching more of the like purple chaotic beams that are spilling out of this, to try and get it buried in sand. So let's make an edge move. Weak hit. I've got 2 options. I can take 2 momentum or add 1 to my next move. We are definitely going to take the 2 momentum. We got to get out of this territory where I'm lower than my reset value. So indeed, it's just as described. He gets it. He builds some momentum by just like, he's got a moment now where it's fully buried in sand. Obviously, the orb is continuing to manipulate that sand underneath it, so who knows how long he has before it might just break its way back out again. This thing is not being contained. It is completely volatile and chaotic. We don't know what it's going to do. But he's going to use that opportunity to try and just... Let's see. How might he jump out of here? Or how might he get out of here? Because he's still at the bottom of a bowl. And he clearly is not going to try and just like muscle his way out. That would be terrible. But maybe he has enough of a moment to use some of the supply he has to try and cobble together something of a rope attached to like, you know, a crowbar or something that he can like toss to the top to kind of hook in onto something and just pull himself out. So we're going to try and make another device here. So this is, again, securing an advantage, cobbling together a tool with just the gear he has. I think it's reasonable that with what he has with the full +5 supply, he could do something like that. So let's see how well it works. This is wits. We get our +1 from scavenger. Boy, do I love that, the new move that I unlocked with that. I still only get a weak hit, but that does work. All I needed was a hit. So I'll still get to have +1 when making a move aided by the item. And I will also get to have +2 momentum from just making the weak hit on secure an advantage. So I get myself up to 5 as, you know, it's a pretty shoddy rope that he puts together. It's various kind of like, I feel like bungee cable-like things that were definitely not meant to be used. It's just like a direct, you climb this, but they'll work. And he knots them together to the best visibility. He doesn't trust that it'll hold his weight that well forever, but it might be just enough to allow him to, even if he starts getting buried by the sand, hook onto something just well enough. But of course, that'll require him to indeed hook onto something well. And so we're going to do this all as one more edge move. We're using this item, so I get to have my +1 on it. But this is his attempt to try and not lasso something, but just hook on to something nearby, potentially even the far side of the airlock door. There's probably, I see he looks up there, and there is, you know, a wheel on the outside as well that he's trying to hook this, like, we'll indeed call it a crowbar, just to be able to picture this properly. It's a crowbar with like a bunch of bungee cables and stuff on it. And he's trying to hook onto this like porthole wheel, get it stuck on there, test it, and then pull himself out. So let's make that face danger edge move, which represents all of that. So any part of it could go wrong. Let's see. Face danger edge with a +1. Strong hit. Awesome. Which means I also get to keep my ad hoc rope. I'm successful and take +1 momentum. So there we go. Emile is out of the big problematic pit. As it continues kind of spilling down as he does it, you know, he's clambering his way up, pulling himself through as the ash is indeed spilling down around him, and he has to just have faith as it goes over his head and completely smothers him. But the rope is still there and it's holding strong, it doesn't snap, and he eventually pulls himself out to the point where he's on a more firm edge beyond the door and able to grab onto like the side of the side of the wall here. There's like piping and stuff on the outside of just a little bit. It's like power conduits and stuff that go along the mesa that he's now on. And he knows that he's on the far side away from the ship. He doesn't trust any of this kind of ash dune around him still. It's a real problematic time. But we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit and represent his journey to get to the more safe ground where he could just walk and be fine. Getting back towards the front where the hangars are, we're going to do this all as one move as opposed to a long journey or anything like that. I'm going to treat this like a set a course, which is the first time we've done this. It's a known route, he just has to follow the wall, but it is through a hazardous terrain. And when I do this, I get to roll supply, and because I'm also using this rope that I can like keep attaching onto things in front of me and then shimmying along and doing that over and over again, I'm going to give myself the +1 from this new tool to try and, you know, he ties it around himself so that even if he falls from shimmying along, he can still probably climb his way back up. And he just goes very slowly, little bits at a time. Like, he hooks onto something that's still within reach, he'll shimmy forward a little bit, hold on to whatever he can, unhook from there, hook onto the next thing in front of him, and just like that, over and over, just kind of leapfrogging ahead, making slow progress. And that's why he gets to use the +1. And if he is successful in all of this, it represents getting all the way back around out of the dangerous area and to the hangar side that is still blown open. So let's do it. Let's set a course. Supply with a +1. Oh yeah. Plenty of strong hit. I get to keep all of that. I reach my destination and the situation there favors me. Take +1 momentum. So I don't have to break any equipment to do it. I don't lose anything or drop anything in progress and have to make any decisions about whether or not I go down to keep it. He's just able to get to the point where it's beyond the ash dunes being an issue. He's back onto just like the craggy, hot, lava-ish molten terrain. So, the situation favors me, but not because it's nice outside. It's more just, I think what favors me is that the visibility isn't that bad by the time I get there. Some of the winds have slowed down a little bit, so I can see through the air a little bit more. And importantly, there's still nobody in the hangar. So Emile stands outside the hangar doors, looking in, and he sees the skiff that he was eyeing beforehand. He's got his target. He knows which one he wants. And let's just have him go up to it and attempt to fix this thing up. I think this is just another secure an advantage, this time with my gearhead, because I'm repairing equipment or technology. So I get to take a +1 and add +1 momentum on a hit. We are doing this with wits. This is all about expertise, focus, or observation. Strong hit. Yeah, thankfully for Emile, the lights are even still off. Maybe that's what No, I want to make it interesting. The lights are back on. They've fixed that situation. So he gets a strong hit. I am successful. It takes some time, and he's staying on the far side of where he knows cameras to be, or where he assumes cameras would be, to try and keep blocked from the light as much as possible, stay in the shadow of the skiff. He knows there's still at least some amount of ash blocking the view, but not as bad as before. It is light in here again, though. He can see what he's doing, which is helpful. I get +2 momentum for being successful at repairing this, which sets me all the way at 9. I also get my 1 momentum on a hit from Gearhead, so I'm actually all the way back at 10 again. There's a chance I double counted the +2. I don't think I did. I'll audit that, and if need be, I'll set it back down to 8 at the end of the session when I have a chance to audit that, but hopefully it just won't matter between now and then. I also get a +1 on my next move, so I think the next move is that the skiff is repaired. It's flyable again, but it's also on its side, which was helpful to stay hidden from things, but it has the fuel, and one could turn on an engine and everything and get it to go, but it's not in a great position to be able to actually go, just given its current state. So let's do 1 face danger move, because this is something risky here. Emile needs to be able to get this back horizontal. This is going to be an iron move, but because of my secure an advantage, I'll get a +1. And because I'm going to also hook my rope implement and pull it down rather than just... He's not just going to brute force he's not going to just push it from the bottom. He's going to hook it onto the top and pull it so that he's got a little bit better of a fulcrum on it. So that'll give me an additional +1. And let's do this face danger. Iron with a +2. It is a strong hit if I burn momentum. Otherwise, it's a miss. Now, the problem is, I need to determine whether I'm at 10 or 8, because if I'm at 10, I can burn momentum. If I'm at 8, I can't. So I'm going to do a quick audit and edit out the time intervening. Okay, good news for me. I did not double count anything. I actually am at 10 momentum, which means I can burn this for a strong hit, which I am absolutely going to do. I'd rather not have a miss while trying to pull a giant, troop carrier kind of vehicle, a vehicle enough to bring at least, I think we said, on the area of, a dozen people each. Something large enough for that just crashing down on top of me sounds like a really bad idea. So let's burn the momentum and make this a strong hit. So I'm all the way back at 2, but I'm indeed successful, which means I get 1 momentum back. And importantly, we have solved the whole problem. It makes a big clattering of noise when it happens, of course, and it echoes through, and Emile is worried and looks around, but does not see any activity. Nobody rushes into the room as he hides behind it, because he's prepared to try and pretend that maybe it just fell over on its own and hopefully hide from everybody. But it doesn't seem to happen. And when he's convinced they're not coming, he decides, okay, the moment is now. Let's peel out of here. Let's steal this fucker. And since he's repaired it and got it fully ready to go, I think there's one last thing he needs to do, though, which is, well, yes, this thing is drivable. And yes, it is now actually horizontal and upright. It is actually horizontal and aligned to be able to fly. I would imagine vehicles still have, keys or some way to prove that I'm the one who's supposed to be driving this, and Emile doesn't have any of those. Actually, we're going to I'm going to check my gear. We are going to see if when Emile was getting just general purpose supplies in the ready room, which was a type of room where people were getting ready to go out on these skiffs in the past, did he find a set of keys in there? Some way to actually turn this on. And the answer is... weak hit. You have it, but I must choose one. My supply is diminished, so I bring it down to a 4 instead of a 5. Or it's not quite right and causes a complication or delay -2. And I do like the visual of... I'm torn here, because I like the visual of it being not the right key, but one that's close enough you can kind of jimmy it a little bit and rake it and like get it to work, which would cause me a delay. But I really don't want to lose the 2 momentum. So much as I like that idea of it being that, I think we'll do the simple option, diminish the supply by 1, but yep, I've got that key. He was smart enough to indeed grab that, puts it in the... I don't think it's like a physical key that you put in the ignition, but some manner of like a near-field device that he can hold up to a sensor that logs in and just like, yep, access granted, powers on. He saw it happen when he got on the skiff to begin with, so he knew what he was looking for. Some little palm screen that you it's like a glass screen that you put your palm on and move it around to fly where this skiff is going. Maybe one on each side, so you do it with 2 hands. And so he holds the badge up to a sensor, and then those turn from red to they blink green twice and then stay a solid green. And other instruments and stuff come on. The skiff itself hovers off the ground, whereas before it was just sitting on the ground. It makes its idle humming, and Emile knows he is in business and does not waste an opportunity to drive off into the dunes. And now that he has fully escaped Concord itself with a vehicle to be able to get his way to the Reacher, this is definitely worthy of marking another pip of progress on I will not die on Cinder. I'm going to find a way off this hellhole. So we mark progress, which puts us at now 5 boxes. Now he's got to get to the ship. He needs to reach the Reacher. And this time, this is unknown terrain. And it's definitely a journey to get there. And this one's going to be a dangerous one, because this planet is filled with hazards and perils. All the magma geysers and everything. There aren't creatures here, but just lots of environmental terrain problems. And we don't know what it's going to be like. And quite frankly, I don't want to do that so quickly as to cram it into this session. So to find out exactly how that journey goes, we're just going to have to wait for next time. It's that part of the show again, the last little bit, and look, y'all know what to do. All the various types of things, they all help me. I love hearing from you. One of the things that I really love, though, is seeing the submissions to action and theme, so let's just get right into it. This week's action and theme are all about a proud moment in somebody's head. Like, I want a tale somebody would boast about. Like, this is a proud accomplishment in a person's life, and the action and theme are abandon and innocence. So see if you can put those together into some kind of proud anecdote. Send me your ideas to starforgedpod@gmail.com. And if I like them, they'll certainly make their way onto this podcast, potentially in the game itself, but certainly during one of the intros. So please send those in to me, and send me anything at all, really. Just one of the most heartening things when making a podcast like this is just hearing feedback, or just hearing the proof that somebody's out there listening. So every little thing like that really helps. Hope to hear from you, and play me out, music.